Jacob, this is a follow-up to my first video and the Magnificent Seven essay. And let me really briefly say to you that just over 10 years ago, I was painting my deck in my home, and I slipped off a stepladder and fell down and cracked my head open. I had a subdural hematoma and was in intensive care for 4 weeks, rehab hospital for 3 more weeks. I don't remember the fall. I don't remember going to the hospital. I don't remember going out of the hospital and going to the new hospital. I don't even remember the last 5 or 6 days of almost 2 months. And also that year I had a prostate ectomy that the cancer had gotten outside the prostate. And so I've done 2 dances with death in the past decade. I don't want to go through either one of those again, but they were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I would not want to delete either one of them from me, from my life and my lifestyle, because it did change my lifestyle. It was interesting having to do with, particularly with a subdural hematoma. I'm a retired Presbyterian minister. When I fell off the ladder, they took me to a Roman Catholic hospital, and the neurosurgeon who cut my head open took out part of my scalp, or skull, and then sewed it up so that my brain could expand out. And then a month later, it came back, opened my head open. He was a Muslim. And we're talking about ecumenism. Retired Presbyterian minister going to a Catholic hospital and having a Muslim surgeon operate on me is an ecumenical endeavor. So that's the backstory. About 6-9 months ago, I was looking for a new web administrator. My other one couldn't do it anymore, and so I went online and told them, you just fill out a bunch of information, tell them what you're looking for, and then they send it out to people that might want to be considered. And he got an email back from a woman and said that she wants the job. She wants it because she sees me doing something noble, and she's going to give me a 60% discount on charges for monthly doing my webpage. I wrote back to this young lady and said, you got the job. And it's not because you think I'm noble, but it's because I think you are noble. Her name is Sandy, which is a anglicized way of saying Javine is her real name. And she used to live, she's a Pakistanis, was born in Pakistan, grew up in Pakistan, came to America, went to Silicon Valley, did some research, has education, and now is living in Sweden with her husband. And she's an excellent web administrator. And in fact, if you look back here, I don't know if you know what that is. It's called a Himalayan salt lamp, meaning that the Himalayas were formed, the Himalayan mountains were formed when, I shouldn't get into this, but after Pangea started to spread out 80 million years ago, there was a large island in what would be east of Africa. And over time, it moved north into Asia, literally into Asia, and cut off a lot of salt water and kept on moving. And as it moved forward, the water evaporated and the salt that was remaining got pushed down into below the surface of the earth. And then about 150 years ago, somebody discovered the salt. And they have the second largest salt mine in the entire world, and the largest one in all of Asia. And it's on the what we call the western side of India and the Himalayas, but it is on the eastern side of Pakistan. And I wrote an article about, I used to teach art history, and I love aesthetics and stuff, and I think they're absolutely beautiful. Medically, they claim that will help you solve 1,000,001 problems. I don't care what problems it'll solve. What I'm really concerned is I like the aesthetic value of them. And so Sandy, my web administrator, got that article, and she wrote back to me, and she said, my dad took me there when I was a little kid. And she's going back with me to Myanmar next winter break from my teaching, which is 11 months from now. And she said, wouldn't it be nice for you to, after you finish up doing what we're going to do in Myanmar with the laptops and improved internet and seeing my family and all that, then we could stop by and visit her parents, who I've written to her parents and done emails with them. They'll take us out to dinner and da-da-da. But then her dad will take us to the salt mine. And she said, they will allow you, you give them $5 and they'll give you a 20-pound block of salt, and you carve it the way you want to carve it. And then they'll, you have your own salt lamp. Now, and you heard this, what I'm about to say, on my first video. On my second video, I'm saying it again. And this is going to sound a little bit like Sandy saying to you, you're noble, but you are. And the thing that makes you noble, at least as far as I'm concerned, is what you've done with the immigration mess on the border. When Donald the Dumb, our fake president, doesn't like people because they're not white Norwegians, he's created a mess down there. And it seems to me that, interestingly, that he's not only had problems with people who have slightly darker skin than he does, but he also has problems with Muslims. And so what we're doing is, I told you about Presbyterian minister, Catholic Church, Muslim surgeon, retired Presbyterian minister, still teaching at college. But my family are Buddhists who live in Southeast Asia, and my web administrator is a Pakistani Muslim. And it seems to me that that is a repetition of the falling of a stepladder. It's a parallel to it. I was reading something in, I think it was National Geographic magazine, and it was the editor of the magazine, and I forget her name, but she interviewed John Lewis, Congressman John Lewis, And the thing that caught my eye on the interview on Lewis, and there's an essay I've written about that too, on my webpage. So all you have to do is search and write down John Lewis, family or anything like family. Because he said something to the fact that we got to believe that there is one family and that we're a part of a family. That we aren't divided out between black and white, Muslims and Christians and Jews and so, I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know any person in the media that'd be more excited about doing two things with me a year from now. Going back to Myanmar, in a developing, dirt-poor country that needs education so that the next generation can become part of the world and not just a developing country. It's a military dictatorship. But the income level is 3/4 of the country is in poverty. And I want to do something for them. There's nothing that I've ever done in my entire life that even comes close to this. That's one. And I don't know of any other person in the media that compares to you as far as similar interests. I watch MSNBC all the time. You're the best. And that's just, we're talking about the border. But there's the other issue about racism, and Muslims, and people of darker skin than what Trump likes to call, Norwegians. So this is going to be a real short add-on. It turns out to be a very lengthy add-on. But I'll be back there starting winter break, probably mid-December to mid-January of the coming year. And I will be there. And that will be the greatest event in my life. Do you know what the second greatest event in my life will be? If you're back there with me. Look at my eyes. If I had you come back with me, and with some crew, a small crew of people that want to do videos of it, you'd have two opportunities of doing kind of the remake of the mess that Trump has done in Texas and Mexico. So of all the things, right now, what I'd like to do is to have you call me sometime at your convenience. And I have no idea how you're going to work with your boss to let you off for a month on a special assignment. But I'm telling you, in a couple days from now, I'll be 76 years old. I've traveled all over the world. I've done a lot of what I think are important things. But nothing comes close to helping my family and my extended family. I help my family in Tangier, Momo and Coco, TT, Fatty, and Snow. I help them financially. I'm telling you things that I don't want anybody to know about. But that family is in my will. And I expect to live for another 26 years or 24 years to outlive George Burns, because we're both born on January 20th. But I'm a different person today than I was back in the 60s in the Civil Rights Movement. I mean, I was on marches and all the protest rallies. But this single event is the most important event in my life. 5 years ago, I met my family. A year ago, I went back to see my family. And when we come 2 years from the second trip, I'll be back, and with 1,250 laptops and improved internet access. And I'll be writing about that trip. Pardon me. Be writing about that trip for years to come. But you have the ability, and then your crew would have the ability to cover it, of helping. You know, I've been given, by luck or whatever, an opportunity to find my family, which I dearly love. But I want to change at least the schools and the students in Tangier, which is not far from Mandalay. It's a fairly decent sized city. I think it's about almost 400,000. But there is nobody else like you. And I'm not BSing you. I'm not trying to sell you something by complimenting you. One is that you and I think on the same wavelength, one, and I respect the way you think. And I don't want to sound like Sandy either, but you are noble. And I don't know how you're going to do it. One is I want you to do it, and I don't know how you're going to do it as far as getting your boss to let you off for 3 or 4 weeks. But it will be a monumental effect upon you and America, because America is going to hear you talking about what you saw, not only in the Himalayan salt mine, but also in Myanmar. It's a golden opportunity for both of us. So appreciate your time listening to, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. One of the people that, if you read the article about Magnificent Seven, you will know it. Clarence Page is the op-ed editor in Chicago Tribune, which is Chicago's 40 minutes from where I live. And I tried to get a hold of Clarence Page about some op-ed thing he'd written, and I couldn't find it, or I couldn't find a word. I read it, and so I looked on the Chicago Tribune's webpage, and what did I discover? And they've stopped doing it, but back about 3 or 4 years ago, he prefaced all his articles, all of them, with video. Ticked me off. Why couldn't I have thought of that? He does a much better job about it because he will cut to the chase and say, da, 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 thank you, and watch it, or read the essay. I'll tell you everything that's in my heart. And that should convince you. So I need you. 1,250 students need you. And America needs you. Comma. But Donald the Dumb, our fake president, doesn't need you. And that's why I need you. Looking forward to hearing from you, Jacob. Ciao.